Hi, everybody. Welcome to Inside Designer Studio. This is the episode 10. I can't believe it. We are already in 10. This is great to see you again. And before I introduce my very special guest, let me introduce our very lovely co-host, Elliot Goldman.
Good morning, Veronica. How are you?
I'm very good. Thank you.
And thank everybody for joining us again and sticking with us. We went through a couple of weeks there with vacation and shows that we didn't get a chance to really do the content that we wanted to, but we have a few very special guests lined up for this week, and hopefully those will be up on YouTube either later this week and some next week and maybe even the week after. I don't know, it depends on the time. Today we have a very special guest, someone that I've met I guess about 10 years ago, and we've kind of stayed in touch. And he went from working at one company, I'll let him tell you his own history, to purchasing another. So without further ado, let me introduce our guest, Mr. Josh Clark. Josh, why don't you address the audience and tell them who you are and where you are and what you do?
Well, good morning. And first thing is, I'll tell you, this is inside the guy's truck, which is an area you'll find me a lot driving around the state of Maine. But yeah, just to start with a little background, Elliot and I met when I was working at Transparent Audio, Maine-based cable and power conditioning product company. And that was where I spent my first 22 years of the industry and had an incredible time. And worked in various roles in that company, from operations manager, to design assistant for many years and sales assistant, and then operations manager, and ultimately director of product development. And product development has always been my passion. But my original passion was loudspeakers. And when I was in high school as a musician, and we can talk a little bit about playing trumpet and other instruments, and also as kind of an engineering science lover and geek, I had the realization that making speakers would be my absolute dream job. And so in 2019, I see it as a partnership. I actually purchased Rockport Technologies, which was a challenge for me, but I've joined Andrew Payor, the founder of Rockport Technologies, in what I see as a partnership. And we're now in our third year together at Rockport Technologies. And we manufacture, for those of you who don't know, Rockport Technologies started in 1991 with some really advanced turntable projects. And we can go into the history of why Andy was there at that point. But his original passion and what we have done since the year 2000 exclusively is make really high performance loudspeakers for home. And I'll stop there and let you guys direct where you want to go next.
Well, let me ask you a question. So how did this, because I never really asked you this question, how did you go from Transparent, where I met you at, to purchasing Rockport?
Well, it's a complicated thing, but I had a tremendous time with Transparent Audio, but for 22 years, I had worked on that, on cables and accessory products, working under Jack and Karen Sumner and Carl Smith, and who are incredible leaders. And I realized at some point, as I was getting into my 40s, that I wanted to make change in my career. And I actually considered leaving the audio industry and pursuing something new. But ultimately, after some time off, I realized that the one thing I would be interested in is pursuing loudspeakers. And over that 22 years at Transparent Audio, I had developed a good friendship with Andrew Payor in a working relationship. Actually, he had worked with Transparent Audio back in the early days of Transparent's history when we were a distribution company, and he had worked with them on some of the turntable products. And as a result, we've been friends since 1997, and that was the genesis of our relationship. And then when I left Transparent in 2018, we started discussing the possibility of me working with Andy, and ultimately came to where we are today with me as the future owner, as the current and future owner of Rockport Technologies, and Andy working for the next 10 years or so as director of product development, director of technology, he calls himself, which he liked because the acronym would be DIRT.
Well, sometimes what makes you feel good is the most important thing. So
yeah, it's hard to explain, but ultimately, in my sophomore year of high school, not ultimately, but originally, I had this idea of getting to speakers, and I have ultimately gotten back to that, and I couldn't be more thrilled about it.
And in this role that you have now, you're the owner, also the partner, and so how do you together make the decisions about the products to be launched to the market?
Well, I'll answer that question in two ways, but certainly as a partnership, we make those decisions. But to start, Andrew Payer has designed all of the Rockport technology products himself, including our current products. And I see this as a mentorship for me as a designer and a leader of a design team. I've always worked as part of a team, and we're continuing that. And over time, as he retires years down the road, we'll develop a new team to carry the company forward. But in terms of how we make decisions about products, Andy and I are very much in alignment, as well as John Zimmer, our director of sales and marketing. We all feel that our niche is making the absolute best speakers we possibly can. And that generally means they're quite a bit more expensive than average, even high-end speakers. So we don't, Andy has always addressed the best category in terms of what he felt was the best way to approach speakers. And that's absolutely how I want to continue the company's trajectory into the future. We do have to grow, and we are growing somewhat because we now have more employees in the company, but we want to stay really, really focused on high performance speakers. And that's how we make our decisions about what products to offer.
good. I think that it's a really good philosophy. I think that a lot of companies get lost and they try to be all things to all people, and that really doesn't work. I mean, I respect the hell out of Rockport. I think that they make really wonderful products, and Josh and I have been fans of each other's stuff for a while, but I respect the fact that they stay true to their philosophy and their target audience and what they're trying to accomplish. And it's not about price points, and it's not about marketing strategy per se. It's about building a really quality product. I don't want to use flowery adjectives. I mean, that's enough for somebody else to do, but building a quality product that a really high quality product and building the best product that they can in a certain area. And I think that, to me, in my opinion, that's the mark of a really good high-end company, that your product, high-end is not just one thing, it's a lot of things. It's fit, finish, packaging, sound, the whole quality and the way the company handles. And to that, I give you a bravo. I think you guys do a really great job.
Well, just one last piece on that. When Andy founded the company, he wanted to create a different kind of company on purpose, where the needs of the product, to achieve his goals of and we can talk about what we're looking for in sound, but a realistic speaker. He wanted to structure the company in a way that it wouldn't drive the design choices. In other words, he wanted to be flexible to go to different materials and manufacturing techniques. And he also wanted to be able to give the product as much time and attention as it needed to make it as good as he could make it. And that, by definition, limits our size and scope. But I think it's been really, really successful over the now 30+ year history of Rockport. And we are going to continue with that approach. And trying to be a different kind of corporation as we grow. We want to stay if anything, even more focused on achieving the best we possibly can with each pair of speakers we build.
Let me ask you a question because I'm curious. You said that you spend a lot of time in your truck, and we can going to find you there. And
Yes.
there must be a very good reason for that. What's that reason?
Well, actually, yeah, that's a great question. I mean, first of all, we have facilities. Our primary facility is in Midcoast, Maine, in South Thomaston, which is where the founder, Andy, lives and created a facility. My home is in Portland, but more importantly, today I'm visiting one of our vendors, and we have vendors all over Maine and New England, and mostly, and we go wherever we can find the best vendors. So some of them are further than driving distance, but at this point in our company's trajectory, I spend a lot of time going back and forth between vendors. I'm actually picking up a painted pair of Lyras today from our painter after our interview. So there is a bit, almost too much transit for me right now, but because we're a small company, we work, well, it's not because we're a small company, but I'm doing some of the deliveries because we work with a lot of local vendors.
And I think that that's something that people need to understand. Sometimes we imagine that because these are high-end products, that it's an easy life of the owner or the designer, and they just sit there, think, and magically things happen. And the commercialization and the marketing and the dealer network happens by itself. But it's a lot of work. And I think that it's also a testament of the American culture of hard work to get great results.
Absolutely. And for Andy and myself, we've always wanted to be directly involved in production. So, we have other production people who do a lot of that work along with us, but we're right there every step of the way. And just to quickly get back to structure, we want to work with vendors who are experts in their field, whether it's painting or machining metals, laying up composites like carbon fiber and early on fiberglass. We don't bring those things in-house unless we can't get anyone else to do them. But our goal is to only do the things in-house where we can actually add value to the finished product. So in terms of our speakers, we're putting together our custom designed parts, and it's me and Andy and Barry and Jody who are working on the assembly and the calibration, which we can get into. But every product is measured with a microphone and goes through an extensive listening verification process. And we're very much hands-on throughout that whole process.
And it shows the commitment that you have for creating a product that keeps being one of the most sought after products in America. Congratulations about that. And for the people who are watching, you must know that Florida is famous because there are power outages. And so that just happened, and Elliot is out of the picture for a little while. And because we're very respectful of our guest time, I have to continue, and I must continue, and I hope you don't mind. So bear with me.
Hopefully Elliot will be able to rejoin us. I didn't realize he dropped out.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. So let's continue. Well, so if you have watched our videos, which I don't know if you have.
I have.
This is a more light approach to knowing you as a person, as a real human being. So we start with a question about what is the sound that you absolutely love?
Sure. Well, and it's an interesting question. I have heard your interviews, but to me, it's the sound of natural objects. I mean, of course, I'm a musician. I love musical instruments. For me, I'm a trumpet player primarily. I started with cello. I played many other instruments, but the sound of live musical instruments in an orchestra, a band, or a church, that's the sound I love. But it's beyond that. Nature also has incredible sounds. And you know, playing a recording through an audio system of nature can be very telling of how realistic that audio system is. So
That's right.
sounds of birds, sounds of wind, water. I love those sounds.
That's
Natural
beautiful. And do you have like a test track with natural sounds that sometimes you listen in your speakers?
Not really, but my reference is live music. So I like to, for evaluation, I like to evaluate with live recordings of live acoustic instruments in a live venue. So in a way, you hear the air, you hear the sounds of people in the audience. You might hear birds in the background if it's an outdoor concert. But no, I don't use nature sounds as a reference point, because musical instruments, I think, are more informative in voices. But still, the sound of nature is something that we aspire to. And when you go and hear those sounds, especially a live concert, and then you go back to hi-fi, you realize, you know, we're still a long way from the target. And you know, stereo recordings are not a natural thing, but they're what we have right now. And that target of natural sound is key to me. So I'll let you continue.
Yeah, well, I am starting to think that if we really want to listen to a recording and it sounds live, we should incorporate some coughing in the background, because that
absolutely
always
like
happens. I don't know. Everybody has the flu when they are listening to music.
Well, I have a definite preference for live recordings. I don't mind hearing that stuff. For me personally, I know it bothers some people, and that's fine, but I actually prefer that.
I'm just kidding, of course. Is there a sound that you hate?
Noise and distortion, electronic. The sound I would hate is the sound of electronic. I don't want to say electronics, because I'm not putting it on electronics manufacturers, but I love electronic music, and that's a separate thing as well. But the sound of unnatural is the sound I hate. And it's, you know, it's a combination of its noise and distortion.
Now, you mentioned that in some point of your career, you decided you may go in a different direction. So what would you be doing if you weren't doing what you're doing now?
Well, that's a good question. Another area.
Oh, I'm listening to you.
Really, and I think solar. Looking at solar power and other power sources, but especially solar power was an area that I was really interested in pursuing. And I am going to pursue that personally for my home, and already have a part in a solar collective. But I think that's a super exciting part of where we are right now as a society.
Yeah, and besides, as a person who loves nature, you want to keep this planet feasible for everybody, right? And
absolutely.
That's one way of many ways to contribute. Okay, so well, now the tricky question that I have to ask, because I'm a woman. Have you ever found in your long career in audio, either with cables or with loudspeakers, that the so-called wife acceptance factor has influenced any decision made by your companies?
Well, certainly. I don't like that term, but I realize it's a reality for some of our customers. You know, my hope is that if it's a couple, for example, or a family, the whole family is involved in the music system or the home theater system. So we design our products to be, and throughout my career, the two companies I've worked with, we've always designed our products with performance in mind. But of course, we want aesthetics are important, and we want the products to look as good as possible, but it's definitely function first. And that's true at Rockport. But one thing that I think addresses acceptance factor, I would rather call it home acceptance factor. And that is that we are really trying, and Andy for many, many years has really tried to make essentially big loudspeakers that are not gigantic, but have create a sense of gigantic sound, whether that's deep bass or large dynamics, but also a very spacious and natural sense of space in a home. Because, you know, our products are designed to be in a home. It's wonderful if you have a dedicated listening room, but most of our customers listen in some sort of a living room.
That's true.
We're trying, in a word that I like that Andy has used, we're trying, for our given size, we're trying to create a speaker that's incredibly potent, that will give you a lot, particularly in dynamics and bass, without a huge enclosure size. And in our future, we're working toward even more in that direction, among other things. But that's one of our key criteria is a speaker that will create a big sound without being visually too dominating.
Yes, and then besides, before we talk about the wife acceptance factor, I think that what is fashionable is the interior designer acceptance factor. Because
yes.
What about the interior designer saying, "Oh, yeah, but can't you put the speaker behind the wall?"
Well, that we can't do, and we wouldn't recommend at this point. You know, and we may have, I don't see us making in-wall speakers. I would love to make a really, really good in-wall speaker, but it probably isn't going to fall within our scope, as I said before. But, well, of course, we do custom colors, which can help. And our designs are, luckily, this is functional, but the curves and the facets on our speakers help the sound and improve diffraction performance dramatically, but they also make them visually less dominating in a room. So I don't think we're going to necessarily make an interior designer happy, but for a homeowner who's willing to dedicate part of their home to music, and where this is a priority, and our customers are definitely making music a priority, you know, home music. This is not a casual purchase. I think we're relatively acceptance friendly.
Great. Now, do you have an idol in the audio industry?
Oh, many idols. In the cable side, I mean, I've worked, Jack and Karen Sumner as product designers are incredible. And I learned so much from them. I work with one of my idols, Andy Payor, who is, to me, certainly among the top handful of loudspeaker designers in terms of balancing all the elements and creating a product that creates incredible realism. Another mentor for me was, or not mentor, but someone who I was incredibly impressed with was David Wilson, who I got to spend a lot of time with earlier in my career. And, you know, although our designs are quite different, I have tremendous respect for his approach, and that tradition has carried on with Daryl Wilson as well. But I would put him on that list.
Of course, me too. Great person. And anyone you would collaborate with, that you would like to collaborate with? Can we maybe complement very well?
Sorry, there was a slight dropout. Can you say that again?
Yeah, yes. Like, is there anyone you would like to collaborate with? Someone who complements, their products complement really well with yours?
Well, our goal, I mean, there are many people, no one specific, but our goal is to, and we also want to look at our products through the lens of other manufacturers' approach, whether it's another cable or whether it's another electronics manufacturer, and certainly many different sources. So in a way, we want to collaborate with anyone who's trying to create the best possible reproduction of natural sound. And yeah, I'd love to talk a little bit about hi-fi, and I will let you get to your questions, but if we can talk about sound a little more, that would be wonderful.
Just please elaborate whatever you want to say.
Well, I would say that I think the best way for me to put it is, one of our biggest problems with the industry is this concept that high resolution and natural or so-called musical sound are counter to each other. To me, I mean, you don't ever go to a live concert and say, oh, those instruments are not high resolution. They're real, they're full resolution. And this concept of in our industry of high resolution speakers, let's just talk about speakers, are generally brighter and thinner sounding and more emphasis on the upper frequencies, to me is a falsehood. And I think that in our sound, hi-fi should be synonymous, or high resolution should be synonymous with realism. Mm-hmm. So I think this is and I went off on a tangent, but in terms of collaborators, we're looking for other companies who believe that high resolution is realism, mm-hmm. is real sound. And of course, you know, with the caveat that a recording is not real. Let's just say in a simple stereo recordings, 2 microphones don't hear exactly as 2 ears hear in a room. Mm-hmm. But within that unrealism, we definitely believe that high resolution should take you closer and closer to a real sound.
Definitely. And the interesting thing is that I believe that you have telepathic powers, because my next question was going to be, what is the biggest myth in high-end audio for you?
Well, there you go. That high resolution and musicality are 2 different things. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. I think that high resolution, by definition, has to be musicality.
Now, what do you think? What is, in your opinion, your favorite trade show?
Well, right now it's Munich. Mm-hmm. For us, because we get to see this year, and the last year it didn't even happen. But this year we saw many of our international
I lost you
distributors.
There. Okay.
And it I said Munich, and I love it because we get to see many, if not almost all, of our international distributors from Asia and Europe and all outposts of the world, Australia, South America. We usually see them in Munich, and for us, that's the most important meeting we have of the year.
Well, now my next question is going to be, how do you see your company in the next 5 years?
Well, we're going to be very similar to what we are today. We don't intend to have a much bigger product line. We just launched a new product that fills a gap between our top of the line Lyra speaker and our next step down, which was the Cygnus. We've put a product in the middle there called Orion, but I see us focusing on a very similar product line. Mm-hmm. And I think that our second focus is to find partners around the world, whether it's distribution partners internationally or a few more dealers that really are focused on producing the best possible sound. Because we want to have places where customers around the world can hear our products. But honestly, I don't see us being that different in 5 years. Just hopefully better.
For sure. Now, when you design, when that's what you were doing, have you ever had a moment in which you said, Eureka, this is it. I just found the answer to something that I've always wanted to listen to, or something of the sort?
In terms of audio, or in terms of?
Yeah, it can be anything.
Well, absolutely. I mean, what I love is solving problems. Mm-hmm. And when you're making audio components or even doing production, you run into problems that create, let's just say, non-linearities in the sound. And solving one of those problems where it's no longer an imbalance in the sound is such an exciting moment. And another philosophical point is, I think, and what I respect out of the great products, and especially out of Rockport, is everything is in balance.
Mm-hmm.
You need to have even frequency balance. You need to have even dynamic balance, which is much, much harder to continue to achieve. When you solve when you solve or find a design problem, and it's usually, let's just think of it in terms of visually, it's kind of a bump that's sticking out or a divot that's sticking in, and you find a way to make that even and achieve balance, whether it's in amplitude, frequency response, or some other element, and all of a sudden everything just snaps into focus. And that's such a great feeling, and I love searching for that. And I think, and just to toot Rockport's horn a little bit, I think that our products have always been balanced, and we've tried to achieve more involvement, which really comes from resolution and lowering noise and any distortions, which are of course noise. So you can hear more and more with our later products, but even Andy's original speaker designs, when you listen to them, they're very, very balanced. And that's for me, hearing a product like that is a eureka moment.
Beautiful.
And this is sort of an insight into, if tonight was your last meal and you could eat one last thing and listen to one last piece of music, what would you choose to eat and what would you listen to?
Yeah, that's a tough one. I'm not a favorite type person. I love experiencing different things all the time, but I would have to say I'm probably a beverage person. So, I would start the meal with a perfect shot of espresso, which you never achieve, but you're always striving for perfection. I love making espresso every morning. Usually don't eat it for dinner or drink it for dinner, but I would if it were my last meal. And the food, my favorites honestly are all over the map, but I probably would tend toward an incredible Japanese meal or potentially Korean meal. Those are two of my favorites. And back to the beverages, I would enjoy certainly a wonderful, rich, full-bodied, organic, natural wine, red wine.
Okay.
And what about music?
I'm a big Asian food guy too, and if it was my last meal, I could see getting hammered on sake, but
and I could go there as well.
Yeah, sake always made me sleep good. So if it's going to be my last sleep, that would be it. I want to apologize to you and to Veronica and to everybody out there. This morning, one of our guys was doing some work in the back and didn't realize what he was going to do was going to kill all the computers in the store. Again, I want to apologize to the audience for whatever miscalculations we made. And I want to thank you very much for joining us.
Thank Josh for this amazing time that we have spent together. Of course, I have many other questions and I would like to talk to you at length, but I know that we will have that opportunity now that we know each other. And thank you, Elliot, for making all these efforts to be here with us in spite of the circumstances. For everybody watching, stay safe, enjoy the summer, and happy 4th of July.
Thank you so much, Veronica. It's wonderful to meet you, and I look forward to learning more about you, which we didn't have the opportunity to do. And Elliot, it's wonderful to see you. I don't currently see you, but I'm there. And
okay.
It's been a real pleasure to talk with both of you. And thank you for bringing your focus to Rockport Technologies for a little while.
It's our pleasure, and I want to congratulate you for being the first one that's done inside the designer studio, inside a truck.
Thank you.
We've set new milestones and parameters today, and
new lows
again,
and new highs.
I want to thank you, and I want to apologize for the disturbance. And for all of you out there watching, please subscribe and support the channel. And thank you very much